Hello. Welcome to the Creepy Author Interview Show in a random backyard. It is my honor today to interview the great Stephan King. Welcome to the show.
Well, it's an honor to be here, Jeff. Thanks for letting me.
Okay, so I guess we're going to start with some personal questions here on the show about your book, Christine. And then we're going to move to connecting Christine in your life and the whole decade. Okay, so here's the first question. The first question is, why is it that you chose to make the main character, Arnie, a nerd or sort of an outcast in the book?
Well, the reasoning behind making Arnie this way was to make it more easily allowed the character to slip into whatever made him feel good, no matter if he knew it, if it was wrong or not. By this, I mean that it was uneasy for Arnie to fall into Christine's clutches because he was used to being unpopular and sad, and Christine was one thing that made him feel good.
That makes sense. Okay. The next question is, why was it that you made it clear in the book that Arnie's friend Dennis did not want to stop and look at the 1958 Plymouth, which we later find out is Christine?
I wanted to emphasize the evil of Christine and build suspense. This is why I made it clear that Dennis had a very bad feeling about Christine right from the start.
That makes sense. I bet a lot of people reading didn't actually catch that. Okay, so the next question is from one of our viewers, and they ask, why is it that Dennis is willing to deal with Arnie's impatience and anger once he becomes obsessed with Christine?
Well, you have to understand that they are great friends before the whole ordeal begins. I made it seem as if Dennis is bothered by this, but is willing to deal with it because Arnie and him have been friends for so long.
That makes perfect sense. So is that why Dennis is puzzled by the fact that Arnie is going to great lengths just to get Christine repaired?
Well, this is simply because he cannot figure out why Arnie is so obsessed with this vehicle and going through great lengths to get it repaired when it is a piece of junk.
So is it really the power of Christine that has a hold of Arnie from the very beginning?
Exactly. I wanted to somewhat let the reader know of Christine's power from the very beginning.
Okay, so is this also why Arnie still keeps the vehicle even though George LeBay lets him know about Christine's gruesome past?
Yes, exactly. I made Christine's power even more evident in this point by showing that Arnie is not willing to let go of Christine, even though he knows two people have gruesomely died in the vehicle.
Okay, so what was the point where you really wanted the reader to know that the situation was out of control and was becoming dangerous?
Well, I hinted at this in various ways. I think the most evident, of course, was when Christine actually began to murder people on her own.
It was definitely very clear at that point. Our next question is from a viewer. They want to know if you are happy with the way you ended the book, or looking back you wish you wrote it differently.
No, honestly, I believe the way which I ended Christine was perfect. I think showing that Christine was still fully alive in the end of the book was a great way to go about it and add suspense to the story.
Okay, well, I think that will be it for the questions solely on the book and the storyline. Now we're going to be asking about a few connections between you and the book, as well as the book and the time period in which you wrote it. The first one is, what were some of the things that were going on in your life that gave you inspiration for the novel Christine?
Really, I think it was a very dark place throughout of this time in my life, and that has always helped me write these stories, such dark stories, I would say.
Did you struggle with alcohol, and did that help create pieces of the story?
Well, yes, it definitely did. I wanted to somewhat reflect myself through Arnie in this story. I made it clear that Arnie was a young man looking for a way to feel good because he rarely did in his normal life. Christine was something that was evil but made him feel better. This was my struggle with alcohol. It was evil and destructive, but it made me feel good as I kept at it.
Did the desensitization taking place during the 80s have anything to do with the significant amount of violence that took place in your novels? I mean, did the amount of violence being shown in the media have anything to do with the amount of violence you were showing in your books?
I don't think that this is something that I consciously did, but I think it did play a part in it. During this time, America was seeing a great climb in the amount of violence in their media. They wanted to see it. and so it ended up in my novels as well.
Okay, so next is another question from a viewer, and the question is, did the theme of excess that came to most in the 80s have any role in the story?
I think it was another thing that I didn't consciously put into the book, but it did show in a way that Arnie was constantly trying to obtain more of what made him feel normal or what made him feel good.
Okay, so the last question is going to be, are you happy with the way things have turned out or the results of just releasing Christine as a whole? Are you happy with that?
Definitely. I've been since sober, and I've been doing very well for myself and my family, and millions of fans around the world still love the novel today.
That's great to hear, Stephen. The ever so creepy Stephen King. Thank you.
Thank you.